I'm Gloria Cabral. Welcome to my home for the love of cooking. Come on in. Hi, happy Thanksgiving meal. I'm going to introduce you to my family Thanksgiving meal. And what's nice about this, we like Thanksgiving all year long. So today we're going to start with stuffing the bird. So I'm going to make two different types of stuffing, one that's going to go in my bird and one that will be cooked in the oven, a traditional Portuguese stuffing that my mother-in-law makes. And what I like to do, and I always say it's traditional because it's a tradition in my house, we like a celery and onion stuffing. So I cut up my onions, and I'm not going to cut them small. I'm going to put them through the food processor because, along with many people, they don't like to see little particles of onion. Oh, I don't like it because it has onion. But, you know, what they don't know won't hurt them usually. So I just put all my pieces into the food processor. I'm going to make sure it's small enough to go in and chop it up till it's almost like soup. In the chef world, that may be like a faux pas. You don't do that because you know what it is. But in my house, it works. Every house should have at least, you know, a food processor or some type of chopping implement. All right, let's get this going. It helps to turn it on. Chop them nice and small. I don't mind if it makes it very wet. Nice and easy, no major chopping or cutting. And we're done. See? Saves me on a lot of time. It's very liquidy and wet, so be careful that you don't spill it all over the place. And I just throw that into my pot. I have to think of time. A lot of times I make my stuffing 2 weeks before and I freeze it. Because on Thanksgiving, I want to enjoy the meal just like everybody else. So I'm going to start this on the stove. And I'm what they call sweating the vegetables. Just a slow... I'm not sauteing because I don't want to change color. I just want them to sweat. Now, again, another thing we do in this house, we're going to cut up, I'm just going to cut up just a little bit of the gizzards. I can cut them. They're very, very tough to cut. And the rest of this will be for another application on the other one. And this just adds a little bit more flavor to my stuffing. It's a very tough piece there, but I just want to add a little bit more of the turkey flavor. So the food process is the best way to do that. There we go. The hard part that we can't chew, we get rid of. I put a little bit of the gizzards or innards in this stuffing, but in my Portuguese stuffing, I use a lot more. That aside for later. Now it's a traditional hamburger stuffing in my house. I'm just started putting the onions and celery, so I put the rest of the hamburger in. My mother used to mix hamburger and pork, and it created more of a flavor, or pork sausage to give more of a flavor to my to the stuffing. But over the years, we've taken some of the pork out because we have pork in other different meals, and also we have friends who come over who are restricted to not eating pork in their diet. So we try to work as our family, and our family consists of friends and family, and we work to have everybody have something at the dinner table. Now this will cook for a few minutes, probably about 10 minutes, till you get it all brown. So while I'm doing that, I prepare my stuffing. I like to make my life easier, so I will buy packaged stuffing and adjust from there. This one has some of it's country style with a little cubes, some of it is the regular breadcrumb stuffing, so I mix the two together because I like the different textures. Then it calls for adding some stock. So I buy beef base, I buy chicken base, and I mix the two to get a beef chicken flavor so it's not strong in one flavor or the other. And I like to adjust that. My recipe calls for a little bit more butter for this, but I cut it down because I have all the fat from my hamburger, which will be the extra fat, and the extra fat will help in the flavor. So as soon as this is brown, we'll just add all this, finish our stuffing, and we'll get ready for the bird. Okay, I have all the hamburger cooked. There's just a few pieces of onion in there. They'll probably pick out after they finish, picking through their food. I add my broth, make sure I get all that flavor in there. There's enough salt between putting in the beef base or beef broth and the prepared stuffing mix, so you don't have to salt it. I usually add just a pinch of pepper, or a good solid pinch because I do like pepper. And I'll add my butter. As that warms up, I'm going to put my stuffing in. I'll slowly mix it in. To absorb all the liquid. And usually, like I said, if I'm going to make this and put it in the freezer, I'll flatten it out on a sheet pan, and I'll use that so it cools faster. You don't want it to cool in a big container like this at a slow rate because it's a good way to get bacteria. And very commonly, people will eat at Thanksgiving and get sick afterwards because things weren't done to the right temperature. So it's, you should invest in a thermometer, and you can get them for like $5 or $7 at the corner store, which is nice. Nice and easy, a bread stuffing. It only takes a few minutes to make, but cooked inside the bird makes a night and day difference. Now, to do what I do with my turkey, depending on the size, I have to figure how long I need it for. And you have to take it out 3, 4, 5 days and put it in the refrigerator to slowly thaw if you're buying a frozen one. If you're buying a fresh one, you just pick it up usually the day before you want it. But I cook mine in a brine. And a brine is water with a lot of salt and flavorings. What it does, it's going to clean out the bird a lot and infuse some nice flavorings into it. What I do is I use a cooler full of ice water, and 24 hours before I need it, I put in all different kinds of spices. I throw my whole bird in there. This way I can pick it up. You'll see dried fruit, juniper, rosemary, all different flavors that's going to be inside my bird. I keep it very, very cold so it doesn't create any bacteria. And I'll wash all this out. Let me get rid of this out of the way. Rinse off the excess herbs when I'm working with this to say, get any crunchy things out or things I don't want to cook with it. A lot of them come with plastic that holds their legs together so it keeps them nice and firm while you're in there freezing. Sometimes the butchers, if you ask them carefully, they will cut the bird frozen in half. We just get rid of the little pieces. What you have to make sure is you take out the neck on this one, and you feel around, and there should be, I must have fell out in my brine, is the bag. I'll check in my bag. And this is where all your hearts and your gizzard and liver, whatever, those parts that normally I feed to my dog, but we will be putting in the stuffing today, are. It's the internal organs. It makes a little mess. They come with a pop-up bird timer, so when it tells you that the temperature is just right, it pops up. I don't use that. I usually pull it out because it's a false for me. Just in case, yes, this area would be cooked, but maybe not here. Especially when I stuff a bird, I have to make sure that internal temperature is at least 165. That's mine. If I Other chefs will cook it a little bit lower. Read on the label what it says to do it, because once you stuff a bird, it's going to take a little bit longer to cook it, because now you have to fill up this whole inside cavity. One of my favorite parts is the neck, because there's so much flavor. And what I usually do is I put that in the bottom of the pan when I'm roasting my bird. And it helps with imparting more flavors into this. So I'm going to put this aside for a second. You have to remember sanitation when you're working with any type of bird or any type of poultry, any type of meat. Once I'm done with this, I wash everything down with a nice sanitizing solution or a antibacterial wash, because if I'm going to put vegetables or fruits or anything else on here, I don't want anybody to get sick. So if you see, this bird is about 16 to 18 pounds. And what I like to do, I like to season inside. So let's see if I can show you. I'll do it this way because I'm right-handed. I put my hand all under the skin, separating my skin from the meat. And that's where the flavor is, because if I put the flavor on the outside, there's nothing there to get it underneath. I want my breast, which is very flavorless compared to the thigh, to have plenty of flavor. So I take my salt, I rub it all into here, and my pepper. And before I put it in, I'm going to put this in a vegetable oil, because butter burns a little bit faster. Some people like putting butter under here, which is fine, but on the outside it tends to burn a little bit. And salt and pepper. I don't like putting a lot of different flavors because I have hamburger flavor. I have all that in here. Okay, and let's see if I can get a little under there. When I was young, my father had a butcher in a store, and he used to take apart and debone the whole turkey whole. So they would stuff it. The only thing that would stay on it was the wings and the legs, and everything would have all the bones out, and you could fill it with complete stuffing. All right. Now I'd get rid of those because my hands have been in turkey. And I would start stuffing my bird. Put this over here so we have any. Now remember, I've had turkey blood. This is warm, so this is going to go right into the oven. If I was going to, I would never stuff it and freeze it, because the time it takes to cook it, you would have a good chance of salmonella poisoning or something on that idea. So this is going to go right into my oven when I'm all done. I fill my cavity as much as I can, because we are stuffing people around here. Sometimes we look like little porkers because we like our bread with our food. And I will use mostly all this stuffing. Now if I find there's a little bit where my hands have been in the turkey and back and forth, I will then cook it off into a container to make sure it hits the right temperature. We did things differently in every household. Your mother or grandmother or father could have done it one way. This is the way my grandmother made it. I'll stick it in the back end here. Well, this would really be the front end, because this is the parson's nose, the last part that goes over the fence. That's the one they fight for around here. My mother-in-law and my friend, they both like that. Ooh, that stuffing is hot. That's why it's nice to work with it when it's a little bit colder. And I will cover the bird completely. Okay, another thing my grandmother used to do is we cook in a brown paper bag. And people will worry what happens in a brown paper bag. Oh, that'll catch on fire. No, it works well. What it does, it absorbs the fat. And there's two ways you can do a bird. People do a presentation up so it looks like this. They cut it, everybody oohs and ahs. I'm more into flavor than oohs and ahs. Well, oohs and ahs of the flavor, but not of the presentation. So the breast is usually the driest part of the turkey, where the thigh is the moistest part. So I tend to cook mine first, upside down. And then I put it in the brown paper bag. So what I want to do is make sure this part will go in first. And this becomes sometimes, when I'm doing a 25-pound bird, it takes two of us to do this, because you add another 10 or 15 pounds of stuffing to the bird. And it gets to be a big hassle. It's like, okay, come on in, jump in. Normally I'm doing this over a sink, because as you see, it makes a lot of mess. All the wings inside. My grandmother used to do this probably, let's see, she died in the 70s, probably for like up to like 70 years ago, that she was using the brown paper bags. Now if you look inside, you'll see that some of the stuffing falls out the back. So I'm just going to add a little bit more in there. My bird is upside down on its belly, or on its breasts. So now, as it cooks, all that extra fat is going to go into the breasts. People like to put things like bacon on their bird, on shortening. Like I said, I'm not going to put a little oil today because I've been working with it and it's already sat in the brine, but sometimes I just rub it with a plain oil, not an olive oil. And this is ready to go in the oven. What I do is I put it on a rack, and I'll show you when I pull the other one out. So as it's sitting on the rack, I poke 2 or 3 holes, let the liquid drain out, so it just keeps basting itself. As it cooks, this will all start turning a darker brown because it's absorbing all the oil and it's basting itself. I cook it all night, about 250, depending on the size of the bird. If it's a 12-pound, maybe 10 hours to up to 15, 17 hours if it's a 25 stuffed bird. So I just do it really low and slow, and that's why I have to make sure all my temperatures are right. I'm going to clean this up, and then we'll show you the other bird as it's cooking, and we'll be right back. Okay, let's check how the bird is in the oven. What I should do is take my thermometer out. We can see how the grease is just absorbing into the bag. It's basting it. I'm not sure if it's ready yet because it said 163, and I'm going to give it a little bit more. But look how nice that looks in there. You have to remember, you just don't take your bird apart. You have to let it sit for about an hour before. It will go anywhere from 5 or 10 degrees more still cooking, because that's called carryover cooking. So let me take my thermometer, and I'm going to put it in the center, which is, I know this was the bottom of my bird, so I'm going to go as far as I can go and take my temperature. And I want it to be at least 165 for me. Again, some people say, oh, that's overcooked. But what it is, it's just a surety that no one gets sick. It's been in a brine, so it absorbs some more liquid. So it says 153, so I'm not ready to put that in there and take it out yet. So I will cook it another half an hour, and then when it's ready, I'll pull it out, and we'll let it sit, and we'll take it apart. I will then clean up everything and come back with grandma's stuffing. Okay, now we're going to grandma's stuffing, or some of you know as vovô. You know, it's made typically with a Portuguese bread, and you let it dry. Normally they buy day-old bread, 2-day-old bread, because that's what you want. You don't want all that extra moisture, but it seems weird to put water into the bread to add it. It's a different way. I could even put chicken broth if I'd like into this. Now, I've never made this recipe before, but my mother-in-law explained it to me, so we have to keep the family tradition. She says, take an onion, and we cook the onion until it gets translucent. She did say add 3 cloves of garlic, but 3 cloves of garlic I just didn't have today, so I'm adding a little bit of garlic powder to my onions and start cooking them. This was our gizzards, heart, everything, and I ground it up again because I don't want to see it, so I'm sure my family doesn't want to see it either. And what I want to do is cook this down for a little bit. She adds chorizo, which is a Portuguese sausage. You can add linguiça, depends on it. In most places, the difference between chorizo and linguiça are the size of the meat that's ground. So chorizo is a little bit more chunkier, a little bit more fattier. I prefer it for this because I like to have that chew where this is already ground. And in our family, we like it extra hot. We don't mind this stuffing because this stuffing is served more as a side dish than in the bird. Some places they will put it in the bird. Some people will make it different. Everybody's vovô does something different. So you have to learn that. I've learned that doing many different Portuguese or and abuela in Spanish. Different recipes that way too, because wherever you're, in whatever region you're brought up is how you're taught, and usually they're brought up in the regions that are whatever is grown in that area. So it looks like I need a little bit more water into my bread. Now I'm going to take the bread and I'm going to start squeezing the water out. All I know is this is how she does it. So she squeezes all the water out of the bread that we just dried to get rid of the water. But there must be a special way. And that must be the secret, because some people say, oh, I don't know how it's done. It's made with love. And this is probably where the love comes from, of doing the extra process. And all you're doing is squeezing out, you know, like I says, I would, next time maybe when I do this, I'll try it with a chicken broth. So then I'm actually flavoring my bread with chicken broth. Though I'm squeezing the extra out, it'll have a little bit more flavor to it. Or a beef broth. Or if I want to use this for another type of pork, an apple juice. That would be interesting. Little apple juice, make an apple stuffing for pork, a pork roast. What you have to do is you just have to try things. I'm sure if she was here, she'd say, you should be squeezing it this way. You know, and usually with music in the background. She's off gallivanting, as most grandmothers at her age of 82 do. Now, if you eat good food and you enjoy life, hopefully you'll live for a long way. And my mother-in-law is living there, the life. You know, there's always a few issues and always a few everything, but she's living a good life. Heck, with all this food around the house, who wouldn't be? Hardly any of this. I put in now almost 6 cups of water in there, and it's just disappearing out and going into it, because you just have to moisten it, just like we did with the first stuffing. We added water to the dry breadcrumbs. You can make your own breadcrumbs over the years, you know, over the time period of if you have extra bread. A lot of times I'll just cut up croutons. It could be different. It could be wheat bread, a mixture of wheat, right? Some people use different types, like oyster stuffing, apple and sage stuffing. Try whatever you like in your work. You know, at work, if it works, it's fine. If it doesn't work, then you have a lot of stuffing you have to feed your neighbors. That's how I look at it. When my father used to make the traditional stuffing that I made and I put in the turkey, he would make a big panel, a big, huge pan of it, because the night before people would come over just for stuffing sandwiches. Every year, instead of 1 pound or 2 pounds of hamburger, he'd be making it by 10 pounds of hamburger, almost 100 pounds of stuffing. The bird didn't get much stuffing. It was all the neighbors, and they knew it, because it's not that it was the recipe. It was the recipe made with the love that my father had for his mother's stuffing, and it continued with my mother cooking it. And as I continue it, I love this stuffing because it does bring back many memories. My mother had her own flair on it. She would add black olives to it, and that's how she liked hers. And she came from a different culture. So I'll make sure these are all set. Let's see how this looks. Starting to get a little translucent. Smells nice. Just I'm only putting a little bits of oil, and that's a salad oil or canola oil, sunflower oil. It has a higher cooking point for it, and because olive oil cooks a little, it'll impart flavor on it, and I don't want to impart any flavor. I'll add this wonderful innards into it. Saute it up. Imagine if those were little chunks. You'll see little. I took out anything that has to be chewy in there, because if it's chewy, you're not going to want to eat it. You can't really swallow it. It's going to make it unappetizing to eat. See, as it cooks, it browns up a little bit more. She calls for half the amount of chorizo that I'm putting in, but I'm planning ahead. If I find it's too much, I just put it aside, and then I can add this mixture to another one down the road, and I don't have to get all the insides or anything else. Well, let's let that cook for a little bit, because that might be, when I put it in here, we'll see what it looks like. And she bakes it. What she does is after we mix it all together, it goes in the oven and bakes. And as it's baking, she's drying it. So she's slowly getting out the moisture again. She says every loaf of bread, use 1 egg. So, okay, we will follow our directions to the best of our ability. I try to break my eggs into a separate bowl because every so often, especially if you're getting farm fresh eggs, you may have something that's a little bloody, a little no good. Baby chicken on the way that they forgot till later. So we have our 3 eggs. Rinsing off my hands. If you could smell it, you'd just say, wow, this is nice flavor, nice things happening on here. I'm just going to add a little salt and pepper because the last one we used with the turkey, I ended up cleaning it up. So I'll add it into my meat here. Right now it will be a little salty, but here we don't have salt. And pepper. Then she says you have to add a handful of vinegar. Okay, so we measured out our hand, we poured it into a container. So it's more or less, depending on your hand, again, if Vavo's hand is smaller or bigger or whatever, you have to know. So I'm just going to toss a little bit of vinegar into there. And then she says, and a wooden spoon of Portuguese pepper. So many things are measured by the wooden spoon. So hopefully we all have the same wooden spoons. But I gave it a little bit less loving because I had extra hot sausage. That's a nice smell to it. Hopefully I did it well for her and say, look what I did, and she'd be so happy. All right, let's shut that off and put it here. I have a little extra shell in there. Oh, it's a breadcrumb. And you got to be careful. This is hot. So I'm just going to toss it in a little bit at a time. And I don't want to burn my hands. As you cook a lot, you tend to get a little bit better on touching hot foods. Call them baker's hands. People say, oh, that's hot. Oh, that's not hot. You want to see hot? I'll show you hot. And then we'll just grab sheet pan sometimes. It's just a bad thing to do. As you see, we get burns all the time. But that's part of being in the kitchen. Those are memories. I call those memories of when I was doing, oh, yeah, I did that day. Or, oh, this was that day. And cooking should be a memory. Yeah, we'll add all the meat in. Let's go for it all. The only bad thing would happen is she says, oh, you got to make it again. Oh, too bad. We'll do it again. Sounds like fun. And then I'll make her make it for me. Move our bread around. Break it up. See, this is where the kids could come in. I could sit here with the kids and I say, hey, come on, join me in. Join with me. I know sometimes when I talk backwards. But that's because I'm talking faster or slower than I'm thinking. And I think that's a woman's thing. We just think all the time. We have so much to do that the talking gets mixed up sometimes. That's why men can't understand us. Because they can't keep up. Such a bad thing. And people say, you shouldn't say that. I said, well, I live in a house full of men. I have 2 sons and my husband. That's why we ended up getting female dogs. I needed some support on my side. See, look at that. It's nice and mixed in here. I'll add my egg. An egg a lot of times is used as a binder. I was going to add butter, and I was looking at it, and her directions didn't say for it, but that's something that was normal to me. But I feel we won't add the butter because I think there's enough fat with the oil. Look at that. And all the charisse in here. The fat with the eggs. And my eggs are a binder. Oh, this looks really good. I can't wait to cook it. So I would make this, and I would throw it in, last hour of my turkey, so I could serve this with my turkey. Doesn't that look nice? What I'm going to do is only going to say put half in here, and I'll save the other half, and I'll freeze it. Because somewhere down the road, I'm going to want some nice Portuguese stuffing. See? If it needs a little water as I'm going, I can always add a little bit more water to it. And this will be plenty for us, and this will be plenty to freeze. I'm going to go pack this away and get ready for our turkey, and we'll show you all the turkey and stuffing already finished. All right, see, I've let it sit for about half an hour. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking the paper off carefully. When it'll constrict a little bit as it cools, but sometimes it sticks. Again, I'm not making a presentation bird. I'm making an awesome tasting bird. I keep my trash close at hand, and I don't throw away my bones. That's why I keep a container, so I'm working with this. I've scrubbed my kitchen down because now I had raw turkey in here, and I changed everything. I have several aprons, so I changed the same one. And I want to make sure I'm nice and clean because I'm going to be working with cooked food. There's a lot of moisture in there, and all that's going to go on the bottom to make my pan gravy. When you put it in a brine, because of the sugars in the brine, helps your gravy become more flavorful. All those wonderful things. Look at this. Put a little bit of stuffing in there, a little bit of our meat in there. Clean up that mess. Oh, if you could only smell this, I'll tell you. So I'm just going to take the bowl and start carefully scooping out my stuffing. I could sit here and just go like this and eat out of it, but I don't think. Sometimes at Thanksgiving, I always grab the wing because I love the wing right off the bird. And by the time it's time to sit down, I've already eaten stuffing and I've tasted everything because nothing goes out without me tasting it. It's very, very important when you cook or bake that you taste it. I'll get that little wing off of here. And this one has a little paper on it, but I'm not worried about all that paper's off because this is my piece for later. And I'll throw the little tips. Now my brother would always eat these little tips. That was his favorite part. Sometimes I used to just bake big sheets of just tips. Or when we would do chicken wings, I would just take the big sheets of that and bake them off. But a lot of times I just put that in my stock pile to make stock because I'll have turkey soup later. Here's my little parson's nose as part of it, which is a delicious piece, and it's just falling apart. In my house, they're not dark meat eaters, so I fake it. I put all the meat off the bone so they don't see it. Put it nice and neat. Make sure there's no little piece of fat or anything else in it. And I mix it in with white meat. They have no idea what they're eating and they like it all. I know, is that a bad thing? Same thing with the thighs and the drumsticks. We do, whoo, see how hot that is? So this is why it's important to make sure all your area is clean. I want to make sure. Years ago, they used to have tendon pullers, and they used to put them on the turkey legs. And before you baked it, it would pull out all the little tendons, so you didn't have all those little tiny bones. But you don't find that because the butchers nowadays are so mass-produced. Everything's so mass-produced. Look how nice and moist that is. That they don't have the techniques of doing what the old-time butchers do. It's so nice to go to a butcher shop and order exactly what you want. See how hot? Ooh. See how fresh we made this commercial or this show? And I will carefully take out all that stuff. I want to make sure, because see these little bones and tendons, people can choke on. So you want to make sure that comes out. And that I won't even put in my stockpile because I don't want anybody to choke on it. So it's so much easier just to brush it off completely. Take out the little pieces. Usually at this point, the dogs are by me. If I have a lot of work on it, I'll leave those there because I will strain all that. So nice. And people say, oh, that's a lot of work. It depends on who's going to be here. If I have people who love the turkey legs, I'll definitely just put them on the plate. But I know today, all that in there, I know today it won't be, so I want to make sure the work I do now is less I have to do later. So I'll keep my dark meat there. And I always take out anything that I don't want to eat. This is where I limit how much skin gets done. That'll go in my soup pile because in my house we don't need the extra skin calories, just the cook. This is the oyster, which is right underneath here. And the oyster to me is the sweetest part of the turkey or chicken. It's just like a mouthful of pure melt in your mouth meat. If I didn't let this wait 15 minutes, it would be a lot hotter. At least it's cool enough that I can work with. It's another little wing for later. And tearing it all down to nothing. This is why I say it's not a presentation bird, but it is a wonderful, delightful bird. Here's my oyster. That's where my oyster is, wrong side, but it's okay. I have 2 oysters on it. Shit, that's hot. Okay, there's your oyster right there. That one right up there. Having fun with it. Breast on here. It is very much easier to work on a cutting board for a bigger piece. See, that meat just falls right off. Look at that thigh meat. Isn't that nice and moist? That drumstick's a little hot. We won't even touch that right now. Take the stuffing. So you figure all that flavor from that stuffing is imparted into my turkey breast. And I'm letting that cool a little bit more, because if I cut it too hot, all those wonderful juices will just pour all over the place. I want that to be in my turkey breast. 2 days from now, well, never last that long anyways, but 2 days from now, that turkey breast will still be moist between the brine and all this wonderful, wonderful flavor. People say, well, that's a lot of fat. Well, you're not eating this every day. It's a special occasion. You eat during the day to nourish yourself. You eat at special occasions to celebrate. And Thanksgiving, that's why we have Thanksgiving meals several times a year, because we want to celebrate all the time. Celebrate for our health and our family. And I tell people, family is not just the biological people. Family is who you're with, who you love to be with, who only help you strive to succeed. So we have a very extended family here of many races, nationalities, and different religious beliefs. And that's fine, because at our table, we all are the same. See that? Nice, right off the bone. It'll fall nice and one big piece of breast. Again, I take out anything that I don't want to eat. I don't want to chew on a piece of no good fat. Nice and moist, beautiful piece. When I put it on a plate, I want to make sure it's presented, and I will cut up a lot of my meat, because sometimes people just grab a piece and they grab an awfully big piece and they eat 1 little, 2 little bites out of it. Okay, that's not a good thing in my house. You take it, you want it. Look at that beautiful. Take my other breast off. And we have to be thankful for the food we're given, so we don't want to waste it. Eat just what you can. You can always go back for second or thirds, but don't take it and leave it and throw it out. I don't give turkey. I have 2 dogs, and they don't get any turkey. Turkey's not good for dogs. So I'll put that for soup later. I'll leave those little pieces of meat because I like that in my soup. It tends to bother, I think it's their liver, so I don't want anything to happen to them, because again, you know, they are our babies. Got nice pieces there before they go out. The grain's going this way, so I just try to cut a little from that, because I don't want big stringy pieces. delicious. And I will cover this because with the bottom on there is my pan gravy. So once I cut this, this will sit long enough, or I'll put it in my oven at about 170 degrees covered so it doesn't dry out. So this way I can have time to make all my other side dishes. While the turkey is cooking, mostly everything is made. Oh, fell apart a little bit here. That's okay. That will be okay. And as long as it tastes good, right? If anything I can say, make sure you have a thermometer so you can make sure your turkey is cooked well. And these little scraps I'll put in my soup. Take the rest of this off, and what I'm going to do with the rest of it, once I put this aside, I'll show you how to make some gravy. There you go. Cut and snack. Oh, that's nice and hot. Look at that steam. Absolutely wonderful. This is just going to be the turkey and stuffing part of what we're doing today. We'll do another show on side dishes. But what you want to do is look at what a serving should be. And a serving usually, depending, whoops, I'll put this aside here. Depending on the size of the person, should be anywhere, they say, about the size of the palm of your hand, anywhere around 4 ounces. Now, some people will fill up their plate. So this is one of our bigger plates, but during the regular year, we serve on smaller plates. So I try to keep all our meat within this size. So 1/3 meat. 1/3 would be starches. So starches may have a little bit of my stuffing on this wonderful, see how soft and moist that is? That's what helps keep the breast nice and moist. And a little bit of grandma stuffing or Vavo stuffing. It's a little bit drier. And then this part is my vegetables. So you can have different types of squash or peas or corn. We probably serve 8 different types of vegetables because I like turnip and stuff like that. So we'll put it in that part. And then I just take all my drippings and I'm straining everything through here into my saucepan. I'll throw ice cubes in it so all that fat layer comes right out because I don't like a lot of fat in mine. And I make what they call pan drippings, and I'll add some flour and water and cook it till it thickens and then just drizzle it. Probably 2 or 3 tablespoons, not a lot, because if you put too much, you're going to not taste the flavor. All you're going to taste is the gravy. This here, if there was no bones in it, that goes right into my soup. All those leftover bones, while I'm prepping everything, I throw it in a pot with some vegetables, and I'll let that boil so I'll have a soup. Different things when they're done with the meal and everybody's finished a day or 2 into turkey sandwiches, they don't want anything. Sometimes I'll make a turkey shepherd's pie because I'll lay my gravy, my stuffing, my meat, the leftover vegetables, my mashed potatoes, and bake it. I have a turkey shepherd's pie, but it's not that weak, so I freeze it. And then I'll come back maybe a week or 2 later, come home from a busy day, I take it out the day before, let it thaw, throw it in my oven or throw it in frozen. One less meal I have to make with the time I had with this. So I hope you enjoy our Thanksgiving meal. We do this for our friends, our family, and the love of cooking. Enjoy.